What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Midwest Outdoors podcast. As you see, we're back in the office right before its facelift, so you guys are going to have to come back next episode to see that. But hey, as always, I'm your host, Jim O'Neill, and welcome in, guys. We have a really cool episode this week because I didn't know what I was going to talk about. You know, we're kind of in the middle right now between ice fishing and open water fishing. People are starting to shed hunt a bit, and I know before we even know it here, the birds are going to be chirping, we're going to have baby ducks around, and fish will be on beds, running up rivers, doing all the things they do in spring, so I can't wait. And there's even some turkey hunting coming up soon, which we might dive into a bit. I was just thinking about how amazing the last year's been and how the podcast has gone and how it all happens, you know? None of this would have happened if it wasn't for the absolute love, the addiction, the passion of fishing, and those that I share that with, because if it wasn't for the friends and the mentors that we've had in fishing, then I know my life and a lot of yours wouldn't be the same, and you wouldn't have all of this fishing knowledge or experiences or trips that you have to relate to. And that's the best memories, the fishing trips, the days out on the water, sometimes with yourself, but sometimes with your spouse or your boys, your fishing boys or girls, right? So this episode, we are going to sit down and talk to a couple of my friends and see what their fishing memories are like and where fishing has brought them in their life and what they are giving back to the fishing industry. And you know, all this really sparred my memory because this little guy right here, the Ugly Stick Dock Runner. I picked this up this week, and I'll tell you what, I don't know if that price has changed. I'll show you guys on the camera. $25. You know, the reason why this is special is because I remember going to the Lake Delavan bait shop, making my mom drive me over there, and this was the first rod or reel I'd ever purchased, that I ever spent money on. Now, if you watch the Eagle Claw podcast, and if you haven't, highly suggest you go check that out and check out all our past podcasts. But I had a yellow 7-foot Ugly Stick rod, and I used that thing my whole life. But the first thing I purchased was one of these guys by Ugly Stick, and it was because we had a cottage, a family cottage up in Lake Geneva that my grandparents owned. We did a lot of fishing in Williams Bay, in Geneva Bay, and over on Lake Delavan. And if you know those lakes, you have a lot of docks. So the dock runner was perfect. Could do little flips and pitches under the boats. Could drop a line straight down for a rock bass or a bluegill. And life's changed a little bit. I bought this weekend now to put in an automatic fisherman to catch the brown trout through the ice, which also up that way in east Wisconsin. And it's now my absolute favorite thing. So when I was a kid, it was my favorite thing to go to Lake Geneva, Lake Delavan, catch some bluegill and perch and bass, maybe a pike. And now my favorite thing is to catch those brown trout and steelhead through the harbors in Wisconsin and using a newer version, but the same rod and reel. So that's pretty cool. And I just wanted to talk about that for a minute because that's what really spurred this podcast. We're going to go back, talk about how we got here, what we did, and at the very end, I'll share some of my first fishing memories and some of my bests. But as for now, we got to get into the show. We are going to start with the tournament wrap-up. We have had 2 Elite Series events the last couple of weeks, and we have had some familiar faces take home the big blue trophies. First, to our Midwestern boy. And in fact, the first guy I ever interviewed for this podcast, it was actually a sample podcast to show management what we can do with this show. I interviewed Bill Lowen, and we had some good laughs and some good stuff. And hey, Bill, your 200th Bassmaster event, that's quite a milestone. And to win your second blue trophy, on your 200th event. Congratulations. Bill came in with, 73 pounds, 4 ounces on the St. Johns River down in Florida. He caught some big fish for the most part. He was flipping around a black and blue jig most of the week. And just doing it old style. Didn't need the live scope, didn't need all the tools, the tricks. He was just out there flipping and catching some nice bass. He had a big lead for a while, but that last day, Jay Shakurit, he ran him down, our Wisconsin boy. So we had a first place and a second place finish. 4 ounces separated the two, but Jay didn't quite have enough that last day. So Bill, congrats again. Bringing that trophy home to Indiana and the Midwest. We love to see it. Fast forward a week or so, and they were still in Florida because most of the country is still frozen. But Florida now at this time of year has bass bonanza going on, right? Whether they're pre-spawn, spawn, or post-spawn, you can kind of find bass in all those different stages right now in Florida. So it makes it for a really unique and interesting tournament to see who can find those bigger females. And truly one of my favorites, one of the favorites of the show, I think famous in the bass universe, the prodigy, Brandon Polinick, won yet another blue trophy. It was one of the least productive days of work I ever had when he caught his 34-pound, 10-ounce bag. It was incredible. He caught multiple over 9 pounds, and for a little while there, it looked like he would have the largest bass ever caught in a Bassmaster event on Okeechobee, until Mr. Gustafson came in David Gaston, David Gaston came in and caught an 11.8, which was a behemoth and the largest Bassmaster bass ever on Lake Okeechobee. But that 34.10 that Brandon caught, that bag propelled him to the finals. In fact, he didn't even have to fish his last day, and he would have still taken home the blue trophy. He finished with 95 pounds, 4 ounces. Now, I was cheering for that century belt, but I think he's already got one, so I don't know if it's as important. But it was truly just an amazing tournament, and congratulations, buddy. No one deserves it more. You put in so much work, so congrats to that. So that's it for the Bassmasters so far. We'll make sure to stop in and talk about every one of those tournaments this year. By the way, Brandon was throwing crankbaits in the middle of a canal, where Lake Okeechobee, it's famous for pitching, flipping, punching, and frogging. He was out in a deep water canal throwing a big swim bait, which is something you haven't seen in a little while since the forward-facing sonar. So very cool to see that, and again, congrats. Now, the Bassmaster Opens this week will be on Kentucky Lake, bringing it back to the Midwest and pretty early in the year. It's been a while since any tournament trail has, a big one like this at least, has visited the Midwest so early. Right now they're dealing with some brutal winds and rains in practice, kind of limiting everyone's practice. So it'll be a fun tournament to watch. I've been following the fishery down on Kentucky Lake for quite a few years now. It was kind of abandoned for a while because of the insane amounts of Asian carp that got into the water. And last time I was there about a year ago, you could drive around with your side scan and see just giant schools of bighead or silver carp, and it's interesting. But what they thought would ruin the fishery has not, especially due to conservation efforts and efforts with the bass clubs. They have a flourishing smallmouth population, better than ever possibly right now, on Kentucky Lake. And although largemouth fishing seems to still be a little down, there's some big fish. I've seen 7 to 9 pounders caught the last few years. My buddy Mateo has even caught a few of those, so cheers to you, buddy. I hope you're fishing this tournament, actually. I haven't checked in on that, so we'll see if any local sticks can bring that home. Speaking also about influence tournament fishing and how we've been brought up, I want to stop for a second to talk to you guys about this weekend. This Sunday, March 9th, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel show. We will have a booth there, Midwest Outdoors. I'll be in the booth all weekend, Friday to Sunday. But on Sunday, mark your calendars, okay? Get your fishing buddy, get your wife, get your girlfriend, get your boyfriend, bring them out at noon on Sunday, March 9th. I am going to be talking about the best bites around Milwaukee and how to catch some bigger fish, from salmon to bass. But then I get to open up for the one and only Z-Train, Mark Zona. I switched mentally thinking that I needed to be a tournament angler to make a career in fishing to focusing more on media after hearing a Zona seminar before. And I had always watched his show. I had admired his speaking abilities and his entertainment value on Bassmaster as a live commentator for so long. And I like to believe I picked up a lot of things that he did with his energy, with his way of words. Just truly, truly someone that has resonated with me in the fishing industry. And I met his father when I was very young. My first job ever, I worked at a bait store selling night crawlers, scooping minnows, and Mr. Zona was one of my most frequent customers. And he would tell me stories about his son, and it took a couple times, actually, of meeting him and talking to him to actually find out that his son that was obsessed with fishing he'd always tell me about was indeed Mark Zona. I think I was actually doing his fishing license one year, and I was like, oh, your last name's Zona, and you always tell me your son's obsessed with fishing. Your son's not Mark Zona. And he's like, yeah, it is. I mean, it was a wild moment, and that was in the middle of Zona's career, but he actually ended up becoming a lot more prevalent and doing more years after that, and as have we. You know, we haven't made it to that level, that's for sure, but it's going to be awesome to open up for him, and I'm going to be sure to grab a seat and listen to what he has to say. So I'm looking forward to that. As for one of my favorite parts of this podcast, we get to revisit it, and that is the record-breaking segment. We got two records. We got two records to talk about. First, Kyler Leslie, okay, of Massachusetts. Now, this is something cool. I got to dig into this. They have two state records. They have a catch and release record and then a kept fish record. Something to help conservation and grow fish, make them live longer, get bigger, right? So he caught a 7.71 largemouth 25-incher. And if you know anything about the Northeast, those fish might even grow slower than they do here in the Midwest. So that fish is very old. It was a largemouth, came through the ice, right? Which I think makes it even better. I'm surprised it even fit through the hole. That thing is giant. And for a young man who recorded over 300 days on the water this year, chasing trophy fish and trying to knock out master angler certs and catch different species he's never caught before. It sounds like he's a young man we might need to get on the podcast sometime. So that was very cool to read about. Also, Thomas Dembeck Jr., another state record from the East Coast. And this one's coming from Maryland, all right? So the M's are represented, Maryland, Massachusetts. And in Maryland, this gentleman caught a 2.3 pound, 16-inch lake perch. Look at that thing. The bands on it are incredible. It's just a beautiful looking fish. And this was in the Chesapeake area, and awesome fish. Broke a record of many, many years. So cool to see that. Love to see these records, right? And then we had a few submissions I thought we should talk about. They're not records, but on our social, we got over 1 million views, guys, on Haley Herzig's fish. She speared the 4th largest sturgeon ever on the Lake Winnebago chain, and this thing was over 180 pounds and over 80 inches. I mean, look at it compared to her if you're looking at our live, our YouTube video at least. Unbelievable fish. It dwarfs her, and to see it in person is truly crazy. And now, guys, we've had some concern over spearing these majestic animals, and they're majestic, they're like dinosaurs, but you know, the DNR closely monitors these fish. They have trackers on a lot of them. They have a really good understanding of the population, and they give out tags, and you're only allowed to spear a certain amount of fish. In fact, almost every year, including this year, because of bad visibility this year, that quota wasn't even close to being filled. So plenty of sturgeon are still going. A few have been harvested, you know, a couple thousand. But it provides tons of meat, tons of food, and the caviar is second to none if you get a female. So there is that. And last but not least, to wrap up our impressive fish catches, although maybe not a record for this young lady. Lucille Witt caught this 16-inch crappie right over the border in Racine County, Wisconsin. It's a beautiful fish, and that is the type of fish that gets you hooked for life. No pun intended. Or maybe it was. So guys, strap in, buckle up. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to have a great episode. We're going to sit down with one of my best buddies, Mitch Cohan. He's been on the show a few times, but he's got some new news, and I want to pick his brain about how he fell in love with fishing. Then we got Carlos, and we'll end with Bass and Bill 96, Billy Matthews, for any of you YouTubers, watchers out there. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Midwest Outdoors Magazine helps you enjoy the outdoors, giving you the best information on where to go, what to use, and how to use it. With fishing maps marked by the pros, nature notes, in-depth interviews, and much, much more. Your subscription gets you 10 big issues of the best in fishing, hunting, and the great outdoors. Plus, Midwest Outdoors Digital Edition gives you dozens of extra articles. Sign up now at MWOMag.com. That's MWOMag.com.
Alrighty, well, hey everyone, we are back and we welcome again to the show one of our favorite people, Mitch Cohen, everyone. Let's hear it for Mitch. Yeah, all right, crowd applause. Mitch, what's going on, buddy? How you been?
Pretty good, pretty good. Fishing a lot, as much as I can, you know.
Is that a real statement or is that just a statement you give to the people? Because last time I checked, you are not a huge ice fisherman, and that's all we've had around here lately.
I know, I know. I haven't done much this year. Been busy with school, but spring's right around the corner.
Yep, yep. And without going too far into it right now, finishing school last semester in hopes to work in the fishing industry.
Absolutely.
Not too many people go to school with the thought of going into the fishing industry, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a dream of mine since freshman year of high school, and haven't stopped since.
All right. So that's what we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back. Let's start at freshman year and you'll have an opportunity to bring it back a little farther than that. But freshman year of high school, that is when we had the opportunity of meeting each other.
Yep.
I had just graduated high school and I became the assistant coach of the Marist Bass Fishing Team, my alumni school. And a young, spry, probably already taller than me, Mitch Cohan, came and was there for the first meeting for bass fishing. And by far my most dedicated student and most interested in bass fishing.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I met you, my whole life has been about fishing, basically. I grew up fishing my whole life, but never anything too seriously until I met you.
Yeah, I've always taken it a little too serious, some have said, you know. Hey, it's what I love, right?
Yep.
Um, so from your memory, right? Because you ended up changing schools and stuff, but you fished your whole high school career. We'll stop it there for a second. Tell me a little bit about what you remember and what you took away from IHSA high school fishing.
Honestly, it was a great experience. I never done any tournament fishing before then. But overall, it was a easy process and truly got me hooked. Just listen to my coach and try to catch as many bass as I can.
Always a good thought. Try to catch a few bass, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So from high school, you go on to college. Did you fish in college?
I didn't. It's kind of hard to fish tournaments when you're in engineering. It takes a lot of time, but never, never got any less interested in fishing. If not, I got more interested. Just a lot less time on my hands.
Yep. And during that time, I forget if it was towards the end of high school or early college, that you got a drawing behind you. Some people might not even know that's a drawing because it looks like a picture.
Yeah, that guy. That was actually my first engineering class, my freshman year of high school. That was that was the moment I knew I wanted to be an engineer in the fishing industry. And I've had it on my wall ever since. Reminds me every day. And hopefully pretty soon I'll be taking that opportunity and doing it for real.
So talk on that a little bit because, I know when I was in high school, I spoke to a few different professional anglers and talked to them about, hey, my mom wants me to go to college. I want to fish, but I think I'm going to college. What should I study? And the answer you'll get from most of them, I feel like, especially nowadays, is on the marketing and business side because of
Mhm.
so much of the job that you don't see, whether you're a walleye pro, bass pro, is promoting your sponsors, is marketing. That's how you make them money. So that's how you make money. Back before that, social media and marketing was so big in it, a lot would tell you to go into forestry or become a DNR officer, something about learning about nature and the fish,
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah.
So what was it what was it that kind of got you into thinking about engineer work but in the fishing industry, and talk a little bit about how many things need an engineer in the fishing industry?
Yeah, I mean, I was always into engineering, fixing my own things, making my own products, designs, things like that. And then once I got into fishing, I really narrowed it down to making my own custom baits, rods, servicing reels, um, really the mechanics behind everything. And I fell in love. And yeah, there's a lot that goes behind fishing and the development of baits, whether that's injection molding to reel design, mass manufacturing products. These are all jobs that engineers do. There's not a single product in the fishing market that's made by a major company that hasn't been made or uh, had a part of an engineer in the whole process, whether that's designing it or the manufacturing behind it. And I knew it was something that I always wanted to go into. Um, it's something that I'm very passionate and I'm proud to put my name on things like that.
So one day when, there's a reel where I can just hit a button and a rod comes out of it,
Yeah,
that would be an engineer doing that, right?
yep. Every idea goes to an engineer. The engineer figures it out, 3D designs it, prototypes it, tests it, creates the manufacturing process behind it, and then you hand it off to marketing, and they release the product,
There you
give it
go.
to anglers, promote it. Yeah.
Well, if the lightsaber pocket rod ever comes out, that's a free idea. You can take that one.
Okay.
I
Yep.
have a feeling it has a little bit of engineering needed for that to really work. So good luck. That might take a minute.
Yeah, it might. It might.
When you see things in the fishing industry, what is something that sticks out to you with the engineering background in mind? Like what products, I guess you'd say, have the most feet of engineering in them?
I mean, reels. Um, reels are very complicated to make. Uh, Creating new materials to make them lighter, stronger, smoother, things like that. Takes a lot of work behind the scenes, than just, coming up with the idea itself that you want to make a lighter, faster, stronger reel. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes a lot of man hours of engineering work to come up with that and create solutions. But that's what the industry is all about. It's all about innovation, coming out with new baits even. So a lot of times I see baits that I haven't seen on the market before at design, and my instinct is to want to know how exactly they work and how they made it.
Sure, sure. Now, let's start with the spinning reel, and then we can move on to the bait casting reel. But
Mhm.
is there is there much more that can be done to perfect a fishing reel? Because
Yeah.
I've seen so much done, even in just my lifetime, right? 30 years. I've seen a lot done, especially with a bait casting reel. That's why I said let's start in the spinning reel because it seems like it's just about, like you said, making it maybe lighter, right? Because it's like gravity, your line's only going to go so far
Hmm.
due to gravity and force and stuff. And your rod probably, especially when dealing with a spinning reel, your rod probably has more to do with the distance of your cast,
Yeah.
stuff
The
like that.
leverage you get from it for
Yeah.
sure. Especially because of the spinning reel being an open spool design. It's
Mhm.
really about how fast that spool can unspool. And the more leverage you have with your rod, definitely the farther you can throw it
Mhm.
for sure with the spinning reels.
Yeah, it has been interesting. One thing that always caught my eye, and I've seen US reels were famous for this, and Lose, I know for a couple of years did a spool like this where it's more like a hamburger spool, I call it. It's
Mhm.
wider, um,
Mhm.
but it's thinner. And then sometimes you'll in the saltwater realm, it's more common to see a thinner spool but stacked. It's like taller.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I just these are observations
Yeah.
I'm seeing, and obviously an engineer somewhere um, said something about let's try this because I can't believe a fisherman was like, yeah, no, I need this spool fatter.
Yeah, absolutely. There's things to take into account, like line capacity, how much line you actually want to hold. Do you want a deeper spool and a taller spool to hold as much line of thicker gauge as possible?
Mhm.
That's why I thought saltwater industry uses a lot bigger spools, obviously. Um, but yeah, there are the ginormous reels with shallow spools, and I've not gotten too deep into that knowledge on exactly why. Typically in bass fishing, that's not too common nowadays.
Yep.
It's I don't know. There was an engineer out there that tested the design, saw the capabilities of it, and wanted to mass manufacture it.
Yeah. Yeah. What do unless it's a secret, what's one thing that you look at, whether it's, you said reels have the most engineering in it, but obviously I know boats have to have tons, and
Absolutely.
motors and stuff like that. What is one thing you see that you say, all right, that might have the most room of exploration?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, So with engines, we're kind of at the limit of our capabilities of what we can really do.
Okay.
The four-stroke cycle um, is kind of fully discovered, if that makes sense.
Sure.
There's not really many rooms of improvement on the engine side of it for four-stroke. There
Mhm.
are companies out there that are trying to make six and eight stroke like Porsche, but who knows if that will come into the fishing industry,
Yeah.
maybe one day. But for now, engines are pretty standardized, and it's really more about reliability at that point. Um,
Does it not make sense on your end? Like, am I just crazy? And I understand the raw power of it, and I understand how much science has to go behind it. But call me crazy. Boats, a vehicle on water, shouldn't shouldn't like I think like the main focus should be a hydrogen engine.
yeah, there are a couple companies out there doing that.
Mhm.
Um, there's not many that are really mass produced right now, just
Right.
because hydrogen gas is not very common to come by at a gas station or a boat dock yet.
Correct.
But they're starting out there. I've
All
seen a
right.
few
Well, there's
designs.
another billion idea. Listen, you just need a straw that sucks up the water, extracts the hydrogen gas, and you're fine.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all.
Are you an engineer?
Nope. So I can't do it. That's why I'm telling you to do it because you're the engineer. So it makes it
Yeah,
easy. I'm the
yeah.
idea guy. I tell
There you
everyone
go.
around me that. I'm just full of the
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah. I'll take care of the product development.
All right. All right. Well, in case that's a little dry for anyone, we're laughing now, so let's keep it moving. We're gonna ask the next couple boys the same question. We'll start with this. Mitch, share me your first fishing memory you have.
That's a good one. I was probably I was probably 6 years old.
Okay.
Uh, my family was never really into fishing,
Mhm.
but my uncle was and had a boat. He took me and my dad out on Lake Michigan for perch for the very first time. And I remember being on that boat, and as soon as we got off that boat, I've been begging my dad, can we get a boat? I need a boat. What can we do? And he always told me, you pay for it, you can have it. So when I was 16,
Easy enough, right?
I did. Bought my first boat before my first car.
That works
And
well.
it all started from that time being on the boat perch fishing with my uncle and changed my life.
We love that.
Yeah.
Now, you can't use that as your same answer. Um, what is your favorite or most memorable fishing moment to this date?
Ooh. Uh, Honestly, last year when I caught this guy, it tied the IGFA world record perch, and truly an incredible moment. Never thought I'd get anywhere close to that. I've invested a lot of time into perch fishing, and I truly felt like it finally paid off when I caught that.
Yeah. I want everyone to know at home that's watching, it looks a little small in the background there, but Mitch is actually 8 foot tall and his head's giant. So don't let that fool you. That's a 16-inch perch or so.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, a big fish, big stomach, big waters. Um, all right. Well, hey, that's like most of the information I wanted to get out of you today, Mitch. I'm still thinking maybe at the end of this, I'm going to tell one of my favorite fishing stories. Um, but, definitely one of my memorable um, was shared with you. And, the perks of the job being in the fishing industry is that occasionally you get to test some new products, you get to go on some cool trips or even fish some private water, right?
Hmm.
So I remember we had this farm pond we were invited out in Indiana. And I invited a handful of my friends out there and I said, guys, it's the first day of open water. Let's have a good time. And like, I don't know, within 10 minutes, I was on the ground bleeding. It was a crazy story.
Yep.
It's like I got shot with a deer slug in my forehead.
I just set the hook and missed the fish, but got you.
Yeah, that did happen, everyone. I think it was about a half ounce weight or so, maybe three
Yeah,
quarters.
half ounce tungsten
Yeah,
bullet.
there you go. And Mitch was like, "Oh, look at this fish! I think it's already out of bed." And we look over the corner. The fish bites it. Mitch, again, like I said, the Jolly Green Giant sets the hook with about 300 pounds of force. And let me tell you guys, you can't get out of the way of a hook that is a weight that is leaving the water at that speed from point A to point B. And point B was my forehead.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so. I don't know. It's pretty good these days. Mama made
Yeah,
put some
yeah, it's not
starter.
bad.
No, we got a little Mercedes or little Harry Potter mark there,
Yeah,
cracked
yeah.
the head good, but it's all
Felt
for
horrible, but
all for the
great
memories.
memory.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
I caught a stud that day.
you
So
did. You
I
did. We
forgot
had a great day that day.
I had a great day. So we forget about that, shake it off, rub some dirt on it. All good to go.
There you go.
Well, Mitch, hopefully we will be able to talk about it later down the line, possibly. But I know you got some life-changing news coming soon.
Yep.
So I want to congratulate you on that. And it has to do with being in the fishing industry a little more, one way or another. So very cool stuff. And proud of you. And keep fishing hard. And I'm sure we'll see you on the water pretty soon here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Midwest Outdoors Magazine helps you enjoy the outdoors, giving you the best information on where to go, what to use, and how to use it. with fishing maps marked by the pros, nature notes, in-depth interviews, and much, much more. Your subscription gets you 10 big issues of the best in fishing, hunting, and the great outdoors. Plus, Midwest Outdoors Digital Edition gives you dozens of extra articles. Sign up now at mwomag.com. That's mwomag.com.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are joined by another second-time visitor of the show, Carlos Thomas, Locolos, the Los. What's up?
Jim, what's going on, man?
Oh man, it's just I know every year you say you want to get out on the ice, but I just feel like I know your good juices are flowing once that warm weather comes and that open water is about to come. So I thought I'd check in on you.
Matter of fact, let me show you something. 1 second.
All right. I don't know how this is gonna come over for you guys, but let me see if I can show this to you. I got to make sure there's nothing illegal here because I look pretty much naked. Yeah, all right, Lois. First of all, I don't even remember when this picture was taken. It doesn't look that long ago, to be fair. Um, I'm holding
What a
North-
guy.
I'm holding the Northern Pike. If anyone doesn't see, do you know anything about that picture?
Man, all I know is every time we're on the water, any day, any time of the hour, man, it's never a dull moment. So I had to send you that to kind of brighten up your day. Don't know what type of day you're having, but
I,
yeah,
I,
man, that's I just want to thank you for that, Jim.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna go ahead and say that fish was in the middle of a tournament. I thought it was a 9-pound largie. We were hung up on a log. I dove down to get it, and it was a northern pike. That's what I'm going with, and I'm sticking with the story.
Yeah, that's that sound about right.
I have to get in my underwear at least once a year while on the boat, or else it wasn't a good season.
Or you wear your bass shoes and spice up the day a little bit.
Fish flops, yeah, gotta
Yeah, that's it.
gotta
The
represent
fish
the fish
flop.
flop.
That's hilarious. When I
So
first saw
Los,
your nose, man, I was like, what are you doing? And then like, a year later or so, like you start seeing TikToks on them, which is crazy. But I
gotta be
guess you're
ahead
a
of the game.
trendsetter, man. You're a
Gotta be
trendsetter.
ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the warm weather, something you and I have done a few times is Braidwood opener.
Hmm.
Here in Illinois, we have our power plant lakes, our nuclear power plant lakes, and the closest one to Chicago is the Braidwood Lake. And that just opened this weekend. I missed it for like the second time in my life. I missed opener.
Yeah, it was I it's a tradition at this point, we sit so long in just the freezing cold that I think it's just a staple that anglers get out around it, at the Braille Open just to kind of, get the lines wet. It's more of a thing to kind of knock the cobwebs out. For me, it's nothing serious. It's a day before like all the serious tournaments because next month I have literally 4 tournaments back to back. So it's one of those days for me. I can relax. I can make sure all my gear and stuff is working. And to say the least, it's a day where you can hammer them. And so that's always a good feeling for me when I know Braidwood Day is approaching. I'm getting all of my batteries, my trailer lights, and making sure everything is registered. So it's one of those type of things for me. I love it. We absolutely crushed them this past week.
Well said, well said. It's like I tell people bass fishing season starts March 1st in Illinois.
Yeah.
And like I'll get texts like or people be like, "Oh, I didn't know fishing, like I didn't know Illinois had a season or a bass season." I'm like, "Well, they don't officially, but like unofficially March 1st is the start."
That's
Uh,
it.
the cool thing is down south, there's some other power plant lakes that don't close for the hunting. Um, I know next year, I know I want to do a show down on either Egypt, Coffeen, Newton. These are some lakes that run warm year round and they produce some giant fish. And honestly, in my opinion, besides an oddity here or there, the power plant lakes really make Illinois fishing not awful. I mean,
Mhm.
like if you list the 10 best places to fish in Illinois, um, you're gonna name at least five power plant lakes out of that list, you know?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, other than the Great Lakes, like I'm blessed to have, to be as close as I am to a fishery like that. It's like
Mhm.
none other, man. It's one of the best places that you can possibly just overall do everything. You can learn a lot. I think the Great Lakes have taught me to be a lot more responsible on the water.
Yep, you can't
And
mess
I know
around with
you
that
can take
weather.
you can take the fishing approach, like, oh, it's not the biggest smallmouth, but I come to fishing for a little bit more than just like catching bass. So it overall molded me as a person, you know what I'm saying? That's kind of the approach I take. So not only am I having fun fishing, like my girlfriend always say, yeah, you always going fishing and having fun. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's a lot to come with it. You got to make sure your boat is together, you got to make sure your truck is together. But to say the least, like Lake Michigan, it you have to be careful out there. You get 3, 4 footers, and you run all the way downtown, and if you don't make the right judgment, it can cost you. You know what I'm saying? It can cost you your equipment. Some it cost them their lives. We've been having quite a few incidents, in the industry. Boats, running past no wake zones, and just having careless incidents. So it definitely molds you to be a little bit more responsible. And of course, you can catch a ton of bass, and you can do it whichever way you want. You can go out deep, or you can go up the Calumet River, and you can go flip, punch, and throw frogs.
Yeah.
So I always look forward to that. But yeah, Braywood for sure is just one of those staples, a lake where, you can take your kids out and you can enjoy all species. You can enjoy catfish, it's really good for that. You can enjoy crappie, obviously. We have some smallmouth there. I know like in the past years, it was more prominent that
Yeah.
you catch a few smallmouth and big ones. For whatever reason, you don't see it as often now, but that's okay because we still have the largemouth species that we love to catch. So
Thousands and thousands
I
and
know,
thousands of
I
bass in
know,
that lake. The only
yeah,
thing, like you said, I think that outnumbers it is the channel cats that they stock in there, and there's an unbelievable amount of those in there. But like you said, it's a healthy fishery. With these power plant lakes, it's not talked about a whole lot, but you have two major things that contribute to it being a great fishery. Because to be honest, in the summers you have a scary side effect, and that's how hot the water gets.
oh yeah.
That can cause fish kills and has in the past on a lot of these
Mhm.
power plant lakes. But the two things are one, because that water gets so hot, the bait fish can reproduce. They have a faster cycle, but they also die quicker because they get too uncomfortable. The oxygen level gets too low in the hot water areas, or it physically just gets too hot. So you have a lot
Mhm.
of those fish dying off. It serves for a perfect time for the bigger, hardier fish to feed on them, right? So you got that making them bigger. And then we talk about the numbers, same thing like the bait fish. And I'd like to talk to a DNR officer about this, or more, not an officer, more like a biologist about this one day, is about the fact that I'm certain, until someone proves me otherwise, that the bass in these power plant lakes spawn multiple times a year. Um,
100%.
because I've seen it. I've seen those fish looking all pregnant and blown out with bloody tails multiple times throughout the year. And it makes sense, if you use like the peacock bass, for example, down in Florida, South Florida, they're in the hottest water of the year, and they reproduce a few times a year. At the end of the day, the bluegill, the bass, it's all a cichlid. It's a freshwater cichlid, like in South America, but no, a North American cichlid, and they run off of two things, and that's food and sex. Their whole life pretty much revolves around that.
Yeah, and as anglers, we definitely take advantage of that, on Braywood.
Mhm.
Given that I think up north it just mold you to be a flipper. So most
Sure.
guys uh,
Cover.
up north, if they are local sticks, they know how to flip, and I think that's where it come from. We take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting seeing that change a little bit, with live scope, panoptics,
Oh yeah.
everything like that. But I think it's only a matter of time. Oh, excuse me. I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing some of those fish hiding again behind those stumps and trees. And obviously, there's still fish there and always have been and always will be. But I think with the amount of people who are chasing these fish with their sonars and stuff, I think we'll see more fish start to leave the abyss, like anglers are catching them now out in the middle of nowhere. And I think they'll be trickier to find again back in those slop. And before you know it, we'll be talking about pitching and flipping again and punching.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it. That's what make fishing fishing. Like you never know. So you just have to be good at adapting, like, with the forward facing sonar, rigor. Like I just never get into it. I just try to utilize it as a tool just for myself because I mean, the reality of it is you do catch fish that you probably wouldn't catch. I mean, some anglers die by like you legit wouldn't have a chance or an opportunity at catching those fish. And
Yeah,
ultimately that's the goal. We out there to catch fish. And for those who do it professionally, for a living, I mean, I understand both ways when it comes to the forward facing sonar for sure, but at the same time, you just got to move on with technology, I guess. I don't know.
I hear you. I hear. But hey, we're not here to talk about that topic. It's like everywhere I turn, I have to hear about the electronics topic these
Oh yeah.
days. So, we just had our buddy Mitch on, and we're talking to the boys about just the nostalgic of fishing, and how it became so prevalent because the guys we're talking to today on the show and majority of my closest friends are all addicted to this little thing with a fin on it. We all are driven by the fish, and it's such a bizarre thing, especially if you're not a fisherman. Like having conversations with someone who doesn't have a strong passion about something, let alone fishing, which is unique in so many ways. It's we're a different breed a little bit. So I'm trying to talk to everyone and figure out what sparked it, what got it going. So what if you can go back, what is one of your first memories of fishing that really kind of started the momentum or got you interested in it?
Well, crying when I saw my uncle and my granddad leaving with their poles, and I'm wondering like, where you guys going to go fishing? When I first started to understand like what they're doing, and then they come back with these huge 15-inch crappie in Mississippi, and Granny and all the people like, oh, look at the fish. We cut them up, and I'm like, I want to go. I want to try that, and so them telling me you can't go until you're a certain age is kind of what started it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't want me to go. I used to fish for like bluegill and they'd take me to ponds, but they used to go out in the woods somewhere, it's private pond or whatever that you have to walk to. And they would catch like the big crappie. I wanted to go there. I didn't want to go catch the little bluegill. So just ultimately that's kind of what started. That's the memory I can remember way back when, just literally sitting on the couch waiting on granddaddy and uncle to come in with those crappie. And I was like, you know what? When I get of age, I'm gonna be that guy. So when he died, I just kind of want to keep that legacy in my family. I mean everyone know me as a fisherman. Everybody. So I don't know, man. It's just the overall aspect, everything about fishing I love, like being out on the boat, seeing pretty cool things as far as nature. You see some pretty cool things out there. I've seen other hawks eat other birds out the sky. I've seen, bald eagles. Obviously, most of us have deer swimming across the lake. Just things you wouldn't see growing up in the city, like in amongst just nothing but buildings and houses, right? It's
Right.
got to be something more to life than just the city life, right? So it's just everything about it. You out there and it's calm, it's peaceful, it's quiet. You got the water, and it's just the element that we can enjoy. We can't walk on water, right? But ain't it pretty cool that you can take a
Frozen.
boat out on the water and experience what the other side of life is? Like it's just crazy. So obviously we love catching fish, but it's just the overall aspect of fishing, the whole approach.
Wait till I get you a snorkel and a mask this year, and you
I
can see
know,
what
man.
the life
I'm
is like under the
dying to
water.
do that. Oh my God, I want to do that so bad in Lake Michigan because I'm like, dude, I'm fishing and I know these fish are here. Why aren't they biting? They all over live scope. What are they? So I would
Half
love
the
to do that
half
with
the
you.
time, it's trophy bass that you need to win that tournament. They're just not interested, you know.
It's insane, right?
Um, I'm thinking of memories. I know that we kind of got introduced to each other a little later from most of the group that we fish with, and I remember collegiately fishing against each other. It was I think my last year was like your second year or something when I came back to put in one more year,
Hmm.
and talking about cooling lakes and power plant lakes earlier. Clinton Lake, I remember like that was like the first time I had like a full on conversation with you, and
Hmm.
I could just tell truly how passionate you were about it, and just easy going person, and like that's just always the type of person that like I've known that I can spend more than a few minutes with. They have to understand what we're given out. Like you said, outside of these walls, we've been given, in my opinion, the best gift in the world from God, and that's nature and the water and its animals and fish and stuff. And I think the more time you spend around that, it truly cleanses your soul. And it's something that you just always can learn from. You never stop learning. Like for the rest of your life, you can learn because it's like studying the human body, right? Like we've Mitch was just on saying we've learned all we can learn about a combustion four-stroke engine, right? Because it's been around for 100 years, and every engineer and scientist and everything has dove into it, and it is what it is, right? But when it comes to reaction and choice and decision, these are things that only someone alive can choose, right? I know someone in the chat's going to be like, AI can, besides that. But fish, they have a mind of their own. Although it might be the size of a peanut or smaller, it's crazy how such a little fish you can think you've mastered and predicted one day, and then even be on the same body of water the next day and things be completely different.
To touch bases on that, though, I think we as anglers underestimate how smart fish really are, which I understand that they have a very small brain. However, I
Instinctual.
think it's
Instinctual.
instinct
Yep.
is what makes them 10 times smarter than what they really are, you know?
Yep.
So, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that, though.
For as much more brain as a human has, not all of us have the best
The best
instincts.
instinct.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree with
no,
that.
I agree with that.
So yeah, so that's your first memory. What about we got out of Mitch, we're gonna get out of Bill. What about a great memory? Give me a memory that kind of stays with you, whether it's your best or your favorite, or just one that resonates when you think about fishing.
I Man, I have so many memories, right? And obviously everyone like to bring out the memory about themselves and the catch they had. Like, I mean, I've caught big fish, I've caught a lot of fish, I've won tournaments. But I think out of all the memories, the best memories I've had was seeing the next person taking people out fishing, seeing them react to catching a fish. Like if I could convert one person that didn't know what fishing was, or which I've done this so many times, and I have friends that actually fish now that didn't fish before or thought I was crazy for going out there in the water and relying on a life vest and all of this talk crazy nonsense that they say. But just the memory of seeing that person set the hook and just reeling that bass, hold it, and me. create less fear because they always going to be fearful of holding the fish. I've
Yeah.
had like friends literally have welderman's glove to hold the fish. I'm like, all right, whatever works as long as you're out here with me. But yeah, just ultimately just seeing the memories I've created, just seeing people that haven't done it before, like enjoy it. That's the best memory for me.
Yeah.
Outside of winning tournaments. Now, my memories of winning tournaments is just astronomical. Like, I love winning tournaments. So that feeling always get me like on a different level, and it increased my love for fishing every time. But yeah, outside of that, just seeing other people catch fish and enjoy and just enjoy the nature aspect of fishing.
Yeah, I think, you were an athlete in high school, right? I don't know if it's all of it, but I think there's something about having a competitive edge or being an athlete. When you grow up, you kind of lose competition. You can join
Yeah, man.
a bowling league or a
Yeah.
sand volleyball league or something, but you kind of lose that competition. And with it comes camaraderie
Oh
and
yeah.
there's just a lot of things in sport and in competition. And do you think a lot of that's why you love it?
Yeah, I'm very competitive, and not only do I compete with other individuals slash anglers, I also compete with myself and the fish.
Oh yeah.
And it's more of a mindset thing. Like, man, I know these fish aren't as smart as me. Like today, I know I can catch a bass. Like, come on, I got all this equipment, I buy all of this gear. Like, why am I not catching them today? And I think that aspect of just being competitive alone is what keep me driven.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still thinking about what memory I'm going to share at the end of this podcast. But before I wrap up with everyone, I've been sharing a memory that comes to mind first with them. And, I was just sharing the memory with Mitch that, although maybe not the best memory I've ever had, whenever I have 100 memories of fishing with Mitch, but no matter what, the first thing that comes to my mind is the time he headshotted me with a 3/4 ounce jig.
You called the group like, oh, you
And
got
I literally
nailed.
thought I died for a second. Now, what we didn't talk about, or what I've never talked about, is the fact that I shouldn't have even been on a boat with Mitch that day because I was supposed to be on your boat,
I
but
know.
someone overslept that day. So I
Yeah.
was in the boat with Mitch, therefore getting hit in the head.
Dude, that
But
was
that's not my
hilarious.
memory. I'm not going to put a negative connotation on you, Los. My memory that comes to mind is since you did miss it, I think it was 2 weeks later. I said, "All right, Carlos, you need to come out here and catch 100+ bass a day, like we did." So you
Mhm.
came out that time, um, but you forgot to do one thing,
Oh man. Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
not to roast him. We all make mistakes. I've done it once. Carlos thought he had his boat, I think, tied to his trailer, and he launched it, and that boat just kept going.
You should play the video that I sent you out on the podcast
We
somehow.
put the video right.
Yeah.
Let's go, baby! Row, row, row the boat gently down the stream. Oh my gosh.
This happened to be one of the funniest ones where I definitely lost the boat. And my good buddy and Jim and Chris went out there and swam for it. So I got lucky.
I remember putting my toes in, thinking about actually swimming to it, and I was like, "Oh my God,
You always want to be in the water, man.
I'm a
That's
fish,
one thing
bro.
about Jim, guys. He always up for getting in the water. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, I don't know if it's from just yelling at Alex Perrick all the time when I was younger about not jumping in the water, and then I
Oh,
wanted a piece of the fun,
yeah.
or if it was like I don't know. I grew up looking at aquariums my whole life. Like my dad always had a big fish tank, and like I just thought fish life is so crazy. And like we know just as much as about the oceans as we do some of space. Like both are uncharted territories, which is crazy because it's on our Earth,
Oh
and
yeah.
the water just yeah, it's awesome. But yeah, it's cold water. we ended up finding a canoe. So brought the Boy Scout, back into me and jumped in the canoe and paddled out there and belly flopped onto your boat and brought her back.
Man, you got to figure out a way to show the people that that was hilarious.
We'll see if we can plug it in.
Yeah, but no, for sure. We've had a bunch of memories out there, man, and I appreciate you for being a friend that you are to me, and many more memories to come, man. We got to get out there soon for sure.
Many more memories. And to wrap up, because it is one of your favorite things to do, win in tournaments. A lot of the guys we know that we grew up with, whether you love them or not so much, that's what competition's about. But you're about to start competing again, and it seems like everyone who's kind of crazy about fishing, for the most part, at least bass fishing, kind of fishes this Cal Sag Lake Michigan circuit. So if anyone's listening to this that wants to get into tournament fishing or tournament fishing around us and not going out of state, do you want to talk about that for 1 minute, what you guys do and everything?
Yeah, man. Honestly, a great group of guys. Like, just I want to just throw that out there. These guys are diligent about, the Cal Sag Trail, and they take advice on, ways to make it better, and yeah, they just put their all into like making the best trail in this area. So I
Yep.
want to thank those guys for that. But ultimately, if you are a competitor and you like a challenge, then this is the trail for you because you have some of the best guys that's fishing that trail, and it's so competitive, and it's super fun. I mean, you can go up the river and you can catch. Well, you can go down the river towards like Alsip if you want. I don't know if that's up or down, but you can go towards Alsip and never lock through, and you can catch river style fish. You can, you know, square bill, spinner bait. Like you can catch the river style fish. You can lock through. Go to Lake Kyle. You can punch. You can flip. You can do whatever. You can catch them deep, up shallow, and then you can go up the Cow River, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, yeah, mistaken that.
Right, that river,
And you
yeah.
can, fish deep for smallmouth. And it's just a great fishery. And I think the turnout is going to be bigger and bigger. And they also host a trail that I encourage everyone to come out to on Lake Calumet. No, I'm sorry, Lake Michigan. It's the I'm not sure the trail name, I like how they word it, but it's pretty much the Big Lake Cow Sag Bass Angler
Right.
Tournament or
Right.
whatever. And Horseshoe is a huge sponsor, so the tournament is held in the Horseshoe parking lot, and the community come out and they show out, and they pretty much just treat you like you are a professional fisherman. They have a digital scale, they have a huge weigh-in stage. There's so much support. You have a chauffeur to take you from your truck into your boat, from the parking lot. It's just amazing the time and effort those guys put to create that the event and the space that they give us an opportunity to do what we love to do at a high level. So
Absolutely.
um,
Because this
if you're not fishing that, man, this year, I don't know what's wrong with you.
because and this is all I'll say, and we'll move on. This is directly pretty much to Bassmaster and the rest of the country out there. The Chicago Lakefront in Northwest Indiana is not what it was in 2000 when Woo Daves won the Bassmaster Classic here. It puts that fishing to shame. We have a world-class fishery
Oh,
right here in Chicago and Northwest Indiana. I've talked before about the salmon fishing and about the perch fishing and stuff, but brown bass and the green ones in the tributaries and the lakes that run off the big lake. Even the harbors, I've seen some big largemouth. But the smallmouth especially, it's you don't have to travel too far from downtown Chicago to catch a 4 to 6 pound smallmouth, and that's legitimate these days.
yeah.
So, all right, Los. Well, hey, I want to say thanks for joining me, buddy. It's always good checking in on you. And I'd say we're about 3 to 4 weeks from getting out on the big water and see if they're biting.
Yes, sir. You always got a spot on my boat, man. I appreciate you.
Midwest Outdoors Magazine helps you enjoy the outdoors, giving you the best information on where to go, what to use, and how to use it. with fishing maps marked by the pros, nature notes, in-depth interviews, and much, much more. Your subscription gets you 10 big issues of the best in fishing, hunting, and the great outdoors. Plus, Midwest Outdoors Digital Edition gives you dozens of extra articles. Sign up now at mwomag.com. That's mwomag.com.
Alrighty, everyone. Well, hey, welcome back. We are now joined by someone I've wanted to get on the show for a while. He's hard to track down, especially since there's like no service supposedly in Michigan. Well, I've learned it's true. Bass and Billy Matthews. William, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jim. I'm not that hard to track down either.
All right. Just when I give you a 2-minute heads up, sometimes it doesn't work out. So, we just sat down with a couple of our buddies, had Mitch and Carlos on, and just talking about the love of fishing, and how it got us here and how it shaped our lives a bit. And, I was thinking, who should I close out this show with? And besides myself, I feel like someone who's done a lot in the industry, at a young age at least, has been you. You've done a few different things in the fishing world. So I guess where I want to start it out with is when we were young. So we both were in a club called Off the Hook. I've never really talked about this, maybe mentioned it once or twice, but it was a junior Bassmaster club. We met at Bass Pro Shops in Bolingbrook, Illinois. And I feel like for a lot of people, it kind of got their fishing bug or fishing career going.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Myself, I've fished pretty much my entire life. There's pictures of me basically in like a little manger in the boat with my dad out there. So always been around fishing. My dad's definitely more of like a live bait guy, does a lot of walleye, panfish stuff. So definitely wasn't really into bass fishing. In fact, whenever I do go bass fishing, he tells me I'm fishing for the wrong species. And that's pretty much all I do now is fish for bass for the most part.
Yeah.
But always was around it, never really, super duper into it and all the, brand new cutting edge techniques and tactics and all those things that I've, really got into now, especially with the tournament scene and, fishing as many tournaments as I do and fishing in college and all that stuff. But what really kind of got me into bass fishing was just my lake. My parents have a house in the neighborhood that has access to this one lake, and it's rowboats only. There's no big outboards. You can't even have a trolling motor. In fact, if you put a trolling motor in that lake, somebody would probably come down and try to tear your head off. So it's just kind of a really low-key lake, and it is a phenomenal fishery because of that too. Not very many people have a chance to fish it because it is kind of private, closed off. You can't just launch a boat in there or anything like that. So got to fish that lake a lot growing up. And mostly, like I said, I was going out there for panfish and stuff. And then I just got lucky a couple times with a little night crawler or a redworm on a bobber. Got to hook into some like 3.5 pound bass, which fight a lot harder than a bluegill. And I'm like, this is fun. This is something right here. So started kind of getting into artificial baits and stuff. From that point on, like I want to target these fish. This is way more fun than catching bluegills and crappie. So started bass fishing pretty heavily. And then my uncle, he's the one that actually got me into tournament bass fishing, hooked me up with the Off the Hook Club. And I learned within my first tournament how much I didn't know about bass fishing, which was really cool too. Because I think I was around 13 or so, 12 or 13 when I joined the club, and had been kind of bass fishing for like 2 to 4 years. But seeing all these guys, especially because that club spanned, I believe, from the ages of 11 to 18, those guys that were 16, 17, 18, that seemed like they had it all figured out, being able to learn from them. And that club allowed us, as you know, to jump into so many different boats with different guys and stuff too, which I feel like is so crucial to be able to learn and grow as a fisherman. So, everyone's got their tactics, their confidence baits. And so you get to see all these guys' confidence baits and kind of get to add something to your arsenal every single time that we go out. So it was super duper fun. And as you know, I'm buddies with Jimmy here. Made some of my best friends, lifelong friends that I still am in contact with all the time too. So it was really, really awesome experience for me for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you mention learning right away, like at the first tournament. I was going to talk about it at the end of the podcast, but it fits now. There was only 6 or 8 of us when that club started, and I was in the first year of it. And in my opinion, I was by far the least of the fishermen out of that group, And I remember showing up to the first tournament ever. It was on Milliken Lake, which is really a pond.
Well, that's a trout pond, Jim.
Yeah. It's got some trout in there. And I remember pulling up, and I think I had like a like a 6XD like a 6XD on my one bait caster, and I had like a half-ounce black and blue football head jig with like a literal Uncle Pork or Uncle Josh Pork trailer on a spinning rod, like a half-ounce jig. And I instantly saw everyone fishing with a jig on their bait caster. So I was like low key and like cut it off and tied it on my bait caster. And I caught 2 bass that day, and I won the tournament. I won the
That's pretty good. I didn't know you were about to go there to the tournament win. I was like 2 bass and Milliken. That's pretty good, man.
Well, one was a 4.8 off of like
Nice.
it might have been on a bed. It was really close to shore. But like that fish, like that one fish got it going. And obviously I didn't really have my dad or uncles. They didn't really put me into fishing. But I had a coach over at Marist who Mr. Ramirez, shout out. He picked me up at my house at like 5 a.m. so I could go to that tournament because he saw how passionate I was about it and stuff. And yeah, that was awesome. And we got a lot of cool experiences from that. I'm pretty sure you were there with me at the Club Classic my last year. I thought I was going to win here. I was coming to the scales with like 18 pounds. And another shout out to Lucas French, caught 34 pounds, I think, that day.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he had, a 914 or
A
something.
9.71, a 6'10.
Yeah.
What?
In Illinois.
It just doesn't happen.
No.
And I think still to this day, even though it wasn't official weighing, because we were weighing the I forgot what we were doing, weighing the fish as it goes,
They were
we had to
handheld.
stop halfway through, right? Like we weighed half of the
Well,
fish.
there's multiple tournaments going on. Like we did a morning tournament and an afternoon tournament, and I think
Yeah.
that was the morning one, if I remember right. And that was all just handheld scales in the boat too. Like I don't think that he brought the fish in, or maybe he
Yeah,
did.
I don't think I saw them. I don't think I
I
ever
don't think
saw
I got
them.
to see the 9-pounder, but there's pictures and stuff. But
So even crazier that like a half a day of fishing resulted in that.
yeah, I think it was like I think there were 2 4-hour separate events, and he caught like 30 pounds in a 4-hour event.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
So what was happening also during some of those tournaments, not when I started, but a few years down the line, is a lot of you guys started showing up with cameras on you. We try not to name drop them all the time, but John B, Perrick, they were in our group. I'd like to believe they got their start, doing what we were doing. And you started making videos pretty early too. And yours took off decently at the beginning. And talk to us about that life a little bit, the YouTube life.
Yeah. So like you said, when I joined the club, I didn't know anything about Off the Hook Junior Bass Masters. My uncle just kind of told me like, hey, you're kind of really getting into bass fishing. If you want to try tournaments out, like you should check out this club. So I showed up to the first meeting at that Gurney. It was in Gurney. Where was that at? Or no, it was a Bolingbrook Bass Pro.
Yeah.
The Bolingbrook Bass Pro. And I saw John B there, which of course, just like anyone else that's really getting into fishing, and especially back in the day, I'm YouTubing everything, trying to watch as many videos, learn every single new tactic that I possibly can. And there was really limited amount of creators out there doing it at the time too. So of course I stumbled across John's videos because he was one of the first people to be doing it, especially like pumping out a ton of videos, even at a young age. So I showed up to that meeting though, and John was just sitting right there. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I didn't even know that he was part of that club or anything too. So that was kind of neat to see that. And, definitely seeing what him and Parrot kind of started with the videos and stuff too. It inspired me to want to do the same. because once again, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And, at this point too, I was a couple of years in once I started making the videos where I was not an expert by any means whatsoever. But I felt like I knew a couple things. And with the limited amount of content out there too, I felt like I still was going to be able to provide people with some insights, some new tactics, or even just entertainment too. A lot of the videos are just for fun. You might not be learning something, but just seeing someone go out there, have a good time fishing and everything too. So I think the videos can serve a lot of different purposes, but jumped in pretty early. And yeah, my whole thought process at the beginning was I just wanted to be able to do it to kind of preserve my own memories. I wasn't
Yeah.
doing it to try to get famous or even necessarily to teach people. I think that was like a helpful byproduct of some people picked up some tips here and there.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was so cool to, have a camera, to be able to document your whole day out there. I have some incredible memories over the years that I was able to film. My PB, and I always forget the exact way, which is probably like not normal for a fisherman. It was like a 10.56 or 10.52, whatever it was, 10 and a half pounder. Have that whole experience on camera from cast to catch, and got to document like the whole day. When I fished in college, I have a lot of really memorable tournaments too. When we caught 21 pounds and 4 ounces or something of spotted bass on Smith
right?
Lake.
Yeah.
We made the third day cut by 2 ounces, so barely squeaked in there. And then we jumped all the way from 12th to fourth place with the biggest bag of the tournament by far. And I have all that on camera. So that was the main reason that I really got into it. Is I want to be able to go back and watch those videos. Like I've probably watched that Smith Lake video over the past like 7 years or whatever since it happened. Probably like, once every year, every 2 years, just to, relive that experience. So that was something that was really cool for me.
Yeah, I remember feeling warm inside watching your PB video. All the boys were excited for that to come out because, of course, we got the text within a few minutes, I feel like, from when you caught it.
I caught it, put it in the live well for a little bit, and I was just sitting there like shaking, and I was by myself too, and I felt like I had to tell somebody. So yeah, I was of course texting all you guys. I was actually down in Texas using John's truck and boat, which is really awesome that he let me do that too. Shout out to John once again. He was up filming some ice fishing stuff because this is like in February of 2020. But I was just, rocking around in his rig by myself and caught that giant out there. So I just had to start getting the word out, of course.
And then life shut down for a couple of years.
And I didn't fish. Yeah, with COVID and everything. I was gonna say I didn't fish though after catching that one for probably like another hour. And I think after that ended up catching like another like 5 or something like that too. I caught like a 6, a 5, a 4, and a 10 that day too. So it was a good day out there. But I was incapacitated for a good hour after catching a 10-pounder.
Well, I think my favorite thing about it was like, didn't Chris just like leave like that night?
Yeah, so I texted guys, we got a group chat, and our other friend Chris, he literally drove from Illinois to Texas through the night and then came down and fished with me because I was down there for a couple of weeks. And so Chris came down and fished for like 5 or 6 days, but drove literally through the night by himself, came down there and got to try to chase some big Texas bass with me.
I love it though. That's what it's about. That's what we're here about. I mean, I asked the last two, their first fishing memory that they can remember and their best fishing memory. So we'll count those two as your best fishing memories, either the Smith Lake or the PB.
Sure. Those are two, yeah, definitely up there. Yeah, probably top 5s. Yeah.
What is the first thing you remember? Obviously, probably something with the lake, but.
Yeah, no, the first thing I ever remember was actually back home. I'm from Illinois originally too. I now live in Michigan, but got my grassroots over there fishing, not the best lakes of all time. So my first ever memory, I was probably somewhere around 4, maybe 5 years old, give or take. Had a little Barney fishing pole, purple little push button.
Barney, nice.
Barney, yeah, rocking it. And we were at Tampier Lake actually, and so we were out there fishing. My favorite. I know, because like the high school fishing deal, there was a bunch of sectionals, and like if you caught a bass, basically you either won or you're at least going to state.
You went to state.
And yeah, so I never got to experience that Tampier. The Tampier from my childhood, I remember being pretty decent, which I don't know if it just had like a huge fall off at some point, or once again we weren't fishing for bass too. So I get into the memory. My first ever memory was standing on the bank of Tampier Lake with my little Barney rod, get the bite or whatever. I don't know if my dad set the hook or whatnot, but all I remember is having that pole, and I didn't know how to reel yet. So I literally just kept walking backwards up this hill. I walked back like, 30 feet up this hill, and it was like a 17-inch walleye or something like that, too. Like a decent fish, actually. But
Yeah.
I remember catching all sorts of, panfish and the occasional walleye and stuff over there. So, but that one in particular, I remember like backing up the hill, and I like fell once I got to the top of the hill and everything, but my dad grabbed the walleye, and it was pretty sweet.
Like a good cartoon moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So from there, like you mentioned, high school fishing was going on. You didn't really have, your school didn't have a team, right?
They wouldn't let us start a team actually, which is crazy. We had one of the teachers there that every single year we had a fishing club.
Mhm.
So they let us meet, talk fishing. We'd be able to go to some ponds and stuff, but to actually fish like the IHSA events, every single year, this teacher was ready to start this program. He kept bringing it up to the board and everything, got shut down year after year. And I know like my junior year, when he brought it up again, they actually told him, if you keep asking, like, you better watch out. Basically, like your job's in trouble. So he stopped asking, and we just had the fishing club. So I never got to fish like the IHSA events, but obviously the off the hook ones were still pretty cool though for my high school days.
Absolutely. If anything, especially in the early days, the bass events were ran definitely better than the IHSA. I'll never forget, the first sectional I ever had, yes, was on Tampier Lake. And there was 26 teams, so 13 schools, two boats, a school, and a total of two bass were registered. Sandberg caught like a 3-pounder in the first 5 minutes on a spinnerbait. And then Brother Rice, allegedly caught a 12-incher. They waded in before anyone else came to the dock and they released it. Was it 11 inches? We'll never know. I think it might have been.
You still think about that one, huh?
I still think about that one. But it was funny and crazy because literally there was like a bayliner on Tampier with a bedroom in it. Like that was one of the boats that they fished off of. And then 4 schools just like rented a rowboat from Tampier and put a cooler in it for the live well. Not that they needed it, but and at the time, Louis proved that, you didn't need all the side scan and all the down scan. And, I don't even know if live scope was really a thing a few years ago when he won it. But I've got to see that, I was out the last day of Trevor McKinney's tournament on the boat, getting to a few feet away from him, watch him catch all those fish to win the college classic bracket. And then legitimately get to go fish in the Bassmaster Classic, even though he wasn't fishing pro or semi-pro, he's just fishing in college, and they've given that opportunity, which is so cool. John Garrett's in one of the top pros now. He was in that circuit, won one of those, I believe, and the Lee brothers, did it. So it's an unbelievable platform, and it seems like it really is producing high-level fishermen.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's like you said, it's grown so much, and there's so many more scholarship opportunities now. I know that Bassmaster, they share stats all the time, when I'm following along with some of the Elite Series events. And I think about a third of the field has now fished in college at some point.
Yeah.
And that's with college fishing really only taking off the last couple of years, and already, 30+% of those anglers came through the college ranks. And obviously there's still a ton of guys that have been on the Elite Series for 20+ years too. So like as some of those guys start, not making the cut anymore, or maybe they retire, I think that, more than half, majority of that field is going to be guys that came up through the college ranks. Definitely still, a way to kind of make it through, local events and start with some BFL, some nation stuff, and, avoid fishing the college ranks too. But I do think that's almost like a feeder series now for the Elite Series and some of those professional tours.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these anglers are so much more equipped, I feel like even by age of 20, than some of the guys that have been doing this for a long time but have never made it to that pro level, because there is just such a lifestyle change, from knowing when to go to sleep, when to wake up, when to move, when to travel, how to pre-practice, how not to burn your fish out, but how to learn enough areas. I mean, these kids are learning that in college, where your average weekend angler who might be a stick doesn't get to do that nationwide.
Right. And one of the things they've really switched to is let me redo that. My throat's
Yeah, let's both clear it.
yeah. One of the things that they really switched to is a lot of those college trails used to be kind of more regionally based. Like I know MLF had different regions where you would have like your one qualifier in your region. That was your chance to qualify for the national championship. Where they're kind of taking it now all over the country, where like the Bassmaster series this year, don't quote me because I don't coach anymore, so I'm not as into it. I've been watching the events as they happen, but I think they were already down in like the Harris chain, so they have a Florida event. So you got guys up north here having to go down there, learn those Florida waters at an early age. And as we've seen, a lot of the Elite Series guys, those Florida events are some of the trickiest ones to kind of get dialed in. They change so much. The fish are so picky and ornery, and you get a
Yes.
little cold front and they stop eating
They're
altogether.
over.
You've got college guys going down there, learning how to do that. They went up to Smith Lake in Alabama. They've got an event, I think, up here this year too. I don't know exactly where, but they'll go fish some of those lakes like St. Clair. They'll get a tournament out on Sandusky Bay. They'll head over to the East Coast too. So I know myself when I fished in college, and I really only got to do it for 1 year and like a partial year because I didn't have it. I went to a community college first, but at SMC where I ended up coaching the team. Didn't have the team for my first 2 years, got to fish a tiny bit in my junior year, and then really kind of went all out senior year. And just in that like 1.5 year of college fishing, I think I fished in like 8 or 9 different states.
Yeah.
So being able to do that, and imagine doing that for 4 years too. And as things kind of progress, I think guys are fishing more and more tournaments in college. So you kind of get that same experience that it used to take years to build, like a decade plus to build in just, 2, 3 years of college fishing. You get to fish all these lakes that those guys are going to go to and fish those Elite Series events at too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I know there's a lot of great fishermen, and you recruited when you were a coach, and it was cool to see some of the top talent from the Midwest want to come fish with you. A little bit, I think it's not only the name and what you did on YouTube, but the dedication and the passion you have for it. And I try to show that to my high schoolers, and right away I can kind of know every year who's going to be the kids that are probably fishing just off their energy level and their interest. You can teach skill a little bit, and you can teach technique, and you can educate, right? But like you can't force a kid, or you can't teach a kid to wake up at 4 a.m. and stand in the rain. That is something that is built into you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so different about college fishing versus any other college sport or any sport in general, really, too, is the actual coaching. It wasn't as much as like, hey, here's a jig, like this is how you pitch a lure and stuff. Like the guys that are coming to the college level now, those are guys that already know how to do most of the stuff. Of course, you want to, kind of help them expand their horizons a little bit. Maybe they're, strictly a power fishing, trying to get them to learn some new techniques here and there. But overall, it's more so based on getting the guys, like you said, that want to be there and that want to put in the work themselves too, and then just kind of working with them to kind of help hone those passions too. But usually the first thing I would do, somebody would reach out, a recruit, or I would reach out to them, and we'd set up a phone call. And usually my first phone call would be about 30 minutes to really try to just get to know them a little bit, tell them about the program, about myself too. And usually within that 30-minute phone call, I could tell who was probably going to have success on the college level too,
Sure.
just by hearing their voice, their passion, their dedication, and just some of their answers as well, of course. But I knew who was going to be the ones that were going to put the work in, and who were probably going to succeed in college fishing. Not 100% accurately every single time.
Right.
Some of the guys, maybe they came to college, and some of them might maybe just had a few unlucky derbies too. But typically, you could tell who was going to be putting in the work, who's going to be, doing really well at a high level.
Yeah. And it's cool to see, people with the same like-minded energy and interests and passion towards it, and it's evolving. It never stops evolving. More colleges get it, more fishing, more high school teams get it. A couple of years ago, Wisconsin even now added an ice fishing circuit. Like tournament ice fishing, and for all ages. And it's so cool. They even let some middle schoolers participate in a bracket. So it's just showing the evolution of the sport. I saw a major difference. I lived in Auburn, Alabama for a little bit of time. And if you follow college fishing, especially really when the Lees brothers went there and since, Auburn's been a powerhouse. And I would talk to these kids, and they're like, yeah, we'll get our degree, but we're coming here to get better at fishing, and our goal is
Yeah.
to be a professional fisherman.
Yeah.
But used to like that was a lucky thing or this or that. Like no one was like very few people thought that was a route that they could go,
Right.
and it's still hard. A few of them have done it. It's crazy. Auburn's pumped out at least one kid a year for the last like 4 years now that's on the pro tour. I have a high school student, a freshman this year, over at Marist, who he just competed in Africa for North America. He
Yep.
just was on the U.S. fishing team in Africa. And it's just so crazy because never in a million years, 15 years ago when it all started, and I was on that first inaugural team, did I ever think it would get to this level.
Right. For sure.
So, Billy, before I let you go, you're done coaching now. The YouTube videos have subsided a little bit, but if I haven't yet, I gotta give you a little golf clap here because what you and my buddy Chris, what you two have been doing in Southwest Michigan and beyond has been kind of remarkable, honestly. The winning clip, especially like 2 years ago, was at a rate that I've never seen. I almost always struggle in a lot of those Southwest Michigan lakes. They're very clean, tons of weeds, and it kind of seems like a bowl. And if they're not under the docks, I kind of get a little lost, especially without the live scope. We don't want to steal your tricks and tips. We still want you to beat everyone up there next year. But what really clicked for you, and how did you start going from occasional top finish to in the money a majority of your events?
Yeah, so I've been fishing tournaments up here now, specifically on a lot of the local lakes for about a decade, which is crazy to think about too. I really started back when I was about 16. So I maybe even a little bit more than a decade. I'm 28 now, I think. And yeah, like you said, started out like, every year, if we won a tournament, like that was awesome. And pretty much every year, we probably got at least one win where just everything kind of happened. You get a couple lucky bites. Like
big 5 pound.
Right. Yeah. Like the first year we ever fished, one of our good friends, Luke Jasper, him and I on a small little lake. I think we weighed in like 17 or 18 pounds. Like just he caught like a 4.5, I caught like a 4 pounder, filled our limit with like 3. Like it was just a great day. So things just kind of come together. But really to try to get those consistent wins, you have to find something a little bit different than what other people are doing. And honestly, being able to find those little things, every single lake kind of has its own little secret that I feel like I've been able to kind of unlock as I go through too. And some of those lakes that might be fishing shallow, some of those lakes that might be fishing deep. I've done a little bit of both, but trying to find something a little bit different than what everyone else is doing. And just time in the water, that's what it takes to figure those things out too. Like I might go fish a lake 50 times and then really things start clicking once you start catching some of those bigger fish. Like, hey, okay, this time I went, I was averaging about 2 pounds. This time I went, I'm averaging about 3 pounds. What changed a little bit? Was it a slight change in the bait? Did I fish a different area of the lake? So kind of just trying to notice those tiny little differences and put the pieces of the puzzle together to make sure that you're doing something that other people probably aren't going to be doing with you, and being able to keep up with those changes too. So like every single year we might have success on one lake and word might start getting around that we're catching them a certain way. Of course, they're small lakes, people might see exactly what you're doing, so being able to go find a completely different area or find a completely different bait or a different way of presenting that bait to really stay kind of ahead of the curve too. And having a few confidence baits is always key as well. You guys, if you have ever watched my videos, I like throwing a jig probably like 90% of the time. I think it gets bigger bites. I think that's one thing too that, if I'm going to skip a dock and you're skipping a Senko, it's a little bit easier to skip. Of course, you can do it on a spinning rod. But if you could get really good at getting a jig like in some pretty nasty places, that profile is just a little bit different. It's going to get bigger bites, in my opinion. So just small things like that, I would say kind of help me out. And then being able to take that confidence bait or, some of those tactics and go to brand new lakes and try to unlock those too. Because that's one of my favorite things is every year I try to fish a tournament on a lake that I've never been to, don't practice at all. For pretty much all the tournaments that I fish, I very rarely practice. Some of the big classic events, if I could get a day, that's great. But I like going into it with a fresh mind too, because I feel like practice hurts me more than it helps me typically too. Your sticking fish that you would have caught in the tournament, a lot of times you're going to end up doing the same thing. Like you already have a game plan in mind that you're going to run. And being able to adapt quickly if that game plan's not working, though, too, if you're not going to practice, is really key. So like, hey, I think I'm going to win this tournament this way. Go try that for 2 hours. I didn't practice at all. Oh, wait, they're not doing that. Being able to adjust on the fly too. But I think not sticking fish in practice is pretty key. I think a lot of guys up here practice a lot. They catch big ones in practice, and then they're not going to catch them in the tournament. So
Well, there you go. Don't stick your tournament fish.
don't stick fish. If you're going to go practice, don't set the hook very much at all. Yeah.
I remember watching, it might have been Cliff Pace, I don't know, maybe Bill Lowen, but I was watching when I was a kid, they literally cut their hook off. And I remember going to practice for a tournament and doing that. And like two kids next to me thinking I was all crazy, and I thought I was way smarter than them. I think I blanked in the tournament, but no, you try different things to see what you can change your success level. So,
Sure. Yeah.
All right,
One last story, if you want me
yeah,
to.
no, come on.
Just to add on to that, one of the times I remember where we did practice, similar as, to what you said, cut hooks off and everything too. Found this one cut where it was Chris and I, and we got like, a bite here, went down like 10 yards up the bank, got a bite there, went 10 yards up the bank. We got about 4 bites up this one bank and then fished the other side of this cove. We weren't setting hook, of course, on any of these. And like I said, I don't think we even had hook points on. Did not get any bites up that side of the bank. Well, tournament rolls around, all of a sudden another boat are going directly back into this pocket, and we're like chatting with each other. And he's like, which side do you want to fish? And we're like, we want that side. And pulled up right where we got all those bites. And we ended up having probably about 14 or 15 pounds in the boat in the first like 30 minutes. And they watched us do it all. They didn't catch a fish on the other side too. So practice can help you sometimes, but if you are going to practice, making sure that you don't stick those fish. Because I think pretty much every single spot we got a bite, we caught a bass around 3 pounds too. So making sure you leave those fish there for the day that it actually matters is super important.
There you go. Anything else for the people, Billy?
That's not that much, not much else on my end. I'm probably going to get out fishing this weekend, which I'm excited about. I think it's supposed to be in the 40s and a little bit sunny on Sunday. So going to go out there, try to get my first open water bass of the year. So.
Well, we got high 50s down here, and you were talking about flipping a jig under a dock, and I'm just thinking about ripping them right now.
A couple top water blows.
Top water. Who said that? Hey, the power plant lakes are open. Yep. There's some hot water discharges somewhere. I can get a popper blow up, I think.
You definitely can. Oh,
yeah. Well, Billy, I want to say thanks for joining us. And thanks for loving fishing. That's what this is about,
Of course. Yeah. Appreciate you having me. And Tight Lines is here, Jim.
Some of the most dedicated fishermen that I know and some of the most passionate people about fishing. And it means so much to me. This is not only a sport, it's not only a hobby, it's an addiction, and it's a lifestyle for me. It really is. And to a lot of the people in this community, including the 3 that we got to sit down and talk to today. As for me, my favorite fishing memory, I think we're going to have to wait a while to hear that one. Some of the best fishing trips have some of the most ridiculous things happen. And, some of those things aren't quite ready for the public's eye to see or hear about yet. But I will say this about my first fishing memory. My first fishing memory, I believe we were at Daytona Beach. I was with my sister, my mom, and my dad. I was about 5 or 6 years old. And we went out on one of those piers. Unlike Billy, it wasn't a Barbie button push, but it was a Mickey Mouse button push. After all, pretty close to Disney World. And we went out there, got a little piece of shrimp, dropped that button down. Obviously, my dad did most of this because I wasn't tall enough to reach over the railing on the pier. But then I remember helping crank up this fish, had no idea what we caught. And sure enough, it was a big puffer fish. And the funniest thing is I'm looking in between the wood slots on the rail, and I'm looking down to see this thing. And I mean, it's like the size of a basketball coming up. And thinking back at it, like, if I had enough sense as a child, I would have been mesmerized that this rod wasn't breaking because it was this big, and who knows what kind of line comes on those button push rods. And he's cranking it in, and the fish gets right up to us, and it goes, and all of a sudden the fish is like the size of this remote, you know? So something about that experience though, you know, left me wanting more. One, because I thought I caught a giant fish and it wasn't that big. Two, because I saw some people catching sharks on that pier, which I thought was the coolest thing in the world. In fact, maybe that is my favorite fishing memory, or at least the one I'll share today. We'll go right into it. I was out on a beach with my buddy Louis Dazzo, who's been on the show before, and my buddy Gray Ramirez. And at the time, Louis was living down in Florida, and I was down there to do some work for a couple weeks. So we planned this for a couple weeks to all get together. We got food, drinks, we got the multiple different types of bait. And of course, we're relying on Louis' like 1 or 2 rods for the 3 of us because none of us have gear that can handle a shark, being from Illinois. And, you know, the beginning of the night, it's no big deal. Louis was doing most of it, kayaking the bait out, dropping it out there, so on and so forth. Well, then night comes, the winds pick up a little bit, right? And people weren't as keen to paddle the half-pound bait out 100 yards or 200 yards out into the ocean. Now that there was some waves ripping, you had some bad current because we were in between like a pass. And, oh yeah, it's pitch black and 11 p.m., right? Shark-infested water. But I was not going home without us catching a shark. So I said, I'll do it. And so I get on this open top kayak, right? Ocean style kayak, no top. And I get a half of a fish, right? Bonita or jack or something. And I'm paddling out and some waves are coming over the kayak and it's splashing and it's a little uneasy. And they tell me to keep going. I feel like I'm going farther than anyone had gone that day. I'm out at least 150, close to 200 yards offshore. All of a sudden, I got a headlamp on, you know, and I'm looking around, and there it is. About 20 to 30 yards away from me, I see a fin just barely sticking out of the water. And I can't explain to you the feeling that overcomes your body with that. It was just an instant reaction. Grab the bait, throw it over, and start paddling back. And that's what I did. I might have obtained world record speed paddling back that day. And I got back onto the beach. The boys were all proud of me. I was a little shaken, but the adrenaline was pumping. And I kid you not, no more than 10 to 15 minutes after we dropped that bait, rod doubles over. And after about a 20-minute fight, 15-minute fight, we catch a 6.5-foot sandbar shark. And that was the goal, you know, get a 6-foot shark. And we did it. I wish it was a bull or a hammerhead, but, you know, beggars aren't going to be choosers. The sandbar shark's a beautiful shark, really cool tail. And, you know, those were one of those memories that every year it comes around, one of us sends each other the picture, we start a group chat, we all relive that moment, and it's what makes me want to go check the ocean again for more, because you never know what's swimming in there, and that makes it very cool. That is this week's show, everyone. Remember, if you're in the Milwaukee area or can take a drive for the day, this Sunday, March 9th, noon, I'm on the Hog Trough at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel show, opening up for the Zona, Z-Train Mark Zona, who's on at 1 right after me. We're gonna have some free giveaways. We're gonna have a great time. If you can't make it Sunday, come by the show. I'll be in the booth. Come talk fishing and tell me what you guys wanna see on the podcast coming up. Anyways, guys, make sure, if you haven't, like and subscribe. We appreciate all of your love, all your support. And until next time, guys, tight lines, and we will see you on the water. Thanks, guys.